have two quality pass rushers. So, I mean, it might have actually hurt Ohio State. They're like, oh, this is the team that beat Michigan. We'll be fine. It's like, again, it's always the apples and oranges. It's not fair to be like, well, we obliterate this team, so we should be able to obliterate this team. It's all about matchups. Like, Michigan has a very good defense. They leaned on that defense. That's how they won. Hutchinson, I mean, if you talk about the game, like Hall of Fame, he's now etched in it, 3 sacks. To really allow them to win this game. Also, Hassan Haskins on that. He's with Hutchinson. He rushed for 169 yards, averaged 6 yards a carry, 5 rushing touchdowns. And again, Michigan, it had to be a good feeling for Michigan fans. And just because it had taken Harbaugh so long, but this was the type of win they wanted, like where their offensive line, their defensive line was clearly better on this day. They were able to milk the clock, control the clock. They ran 41 times. They only threw it 20, and they were able to keep pressure on Stroud. So even though he still finished with 394 yards, 2 touchdowns, he was under duress at multiple times. So, it was a great game. Also, it was nice that it had a little bit of snow, a little frost on it. Sir. So and like I said, they played tough, right? They were equal till a halftime, and then it was the third quarter where it shifted towards Michigan, and it never really went back.
And I got a question for you. Does this put Michigan in the Final Four, or do they have to win the Big Ten championship, or where do we stand on that?
Oh, I think they're in the Final Four. I think they have to be.
I think they have to beat Iowa, but I think they will beat Iowa. So, yes, they're in the Final Four.
Iowa doesn't have any offense. I mean, that 3 yards in a cloud of dust is not going to work against that Michigan defense.
Actually, it's those little rubber tire parts because it's on that artificial turf. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not dust anymore. Yeah.
Cloud of retreads. Yeah.
Exactly. Retreads. Whew, literally and figuratively. But who's your other Final Four then? What do we got? We got Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
All right, keep
Alabama.
going. No, he's still holding that.
No, Alabama
carrying that.
Based on what?
Be the candle, baby.
Based on what?
Candle.
Based on they're the better team.
Better than what? What?
I would say, obviously, I think Michigan, Georgia for sure. Alabama's debatable, but I'm leaning towards Alabama, and maybe Cincinnati.
Oh, he actually said it. He actually said it.
Okay. I'm glad Lugs has faith still in Alabama. And I don't dislike Alabama, but here's the main thing for this year in particular why. They barely beat a Florida team that after Florida lost to them went completely in the tank.
True.
They barely beat an LSU team that fired their coach before that game even happened. That's how great that season was going for them. And Arkansas is a good team, so that's a quality win. They have some quality wins. Obviously, Ole Miss is a quality win in the Arkansas game. But the Arkansas game, they gave up over 500 yards of offensive yardage. And, again, Arkansas had a shot to win that game. And Auburn, again, I know it's the Iron Bowl and whatnot, but Auburn, with losing that game, they were a 500 team. Alabama barely beat a 500 Auburn team with a backup quarterback who was injured. And on top of it too, if we're being honest, I'll go back to the main big picture. But in terms of the Iron Bowl, how bad and mediocre Auburn's offense was in the second half. When they scored that touchdown in one of the 2 overtimes, they had that one great 2-point play, and particularly when they were the second team and Alabama already scored 7 points. They should have used that 2-point play just to end the game. Like, their offense is so putrid. They should have used a 2-point play to end the game before the third and fourth overtimes. They should have used it because
see, we got to cue up that Saban rant about it's not about the quality of the win, it's the W itself. That's basically, he was calling out fans for whining.
Well, Saban, I like any coach, he's politicking because he knows he doesn't have to do it because usually they are so dominant and they look like a true playoff team. This year they are not. They are
tell me who you got. Who you got, brother?
Again, I will say this: if Oklahoma State beats Baylor. Baylor is ranked 8th, and they've already beat Baylor before. If they beat Baylor again in the Big 12 championship, they clearly deserve to go in, I think,
The Cowboys.
over Alabama. I think Notre Dame with 1 loss, because, again, Alabama will not only have 2 losses, there's a good chance Georgia is going to tub thump them. So that as it being the last game. And also, clearly, let's be honest with you, Alabama, and even people who have written and actually follow Alabama as reporters and stuff, after last week's game against Arkansas, they're like, we're at the end of the season. We still don't know the identity of Alabama. They've been again, this is impressive to the coaching staff and Nick Saban, and I'd say Young, their quarterback, but like this team has no identity. Like they're not.
Well, who's number 4?
They can't run.
Yeah, who's your
number 4?
I would put Cincinnati. Cincinnati went undefeated 2 years in a row. I would put Cincinnati.
Oklahoma State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Cincy.
So I'm just saying, I think there's 3 quality people.
So Notre Dame gets to go in, even though Cincinnati beat them.
Well, they'd be 4th. Cincinnati be 3. I'd say Michigan's 2. If Oklahoma State wins, I'd say Oklahoma State is maybe 3, Cincinnati, and then maybe Oklahoma. And then Notre Dame. Alabama, I'm sorry. Alabama is after those because at 1, they have 2 losses. And also, I think if you look at the quality of wins.
They don't have 2 losses yet.
They're going to lose to Georgia.
They're going to lose.
All right.
We're going to have to put a biscuit on it.
Well, here's the other thing too. Here's the other thing, Lugs, too. If you look at one of their only loss right now, Texas A&M. Look at how they finished the season. Texas A&M didn't look that great.
Nope.
By the end of the year.
Again, a W is a W, dog.
I know for Texas A&M. It wasn't a win for Alabama.
Okay, before we get away from college football, we have to take 30 seconds and talk about. I think it was a game, but I'm not sure. Louisville, Kentucky. Oh goodness gracious! Is that game still being played, or did it finally end? I don't know. 56 million to 3.
Yeah, that was just a bit of sadness. The offense for U of L tried for a half. The defense tried for about 12 seconds. And after that, it was done. And you got to give it to Mark Stoops. He didn't care. He was piling up points, Jack. He wanted to beat down U of L into a powder.
He's doing a good job of it for sure.
And he did it.
Yeah.
So
I guess my only thing on it was this is my only quick takeaway that I'll put on it is, how was U of L favored by Vegas?
3.
Vegas is usually really good. Was obliterating a bad Duke team that eye-opening that they're like, yes, clearly this Kentucky team that, again, like I said, Florida maybe isn't great, but still like they beat them. And think about this, Alabama barely beat LSU. UK destroyed LSU.
They don't have cable in Vegas. I think that's what it is.
I don't know. It's very bizarre. This team,
the wise guys got it wrong.
So, but that's all I want to say on the game.
All right. Hey, you want to move to the NFL? It was quite a week. Where do you want to start with that? Get it going.
I would have to say at this point, if we want to go top teams, I got to have the Packers. It was pretty amazing they got guys. That one guy, Runyon. Where the hell did they get that guy? But he showed up. I mean, they've got guys showing up that and Dylan, man, he's a great. It's just these sort of like the way New England used to be.
Role players.
Belichick would bring in these guys. They'd be around for maybe 2 years, but they'd just play very well. I was impressed with that, and even though I hate to give it to him, Rodgers, man, but I think that game proved to me one thing. Rodgers will not leave Green Bay. I think he will stay. He should stay.
Interesting.
I think he's, he will never be more beloved anywhere else that he ever goes than he will be in Green Bay if he just can stop being a nut long enough. So I was impressed with that game. And there were others. I mean, like the New England. Think about this. I'll say this big picture. Would it not be great to have the Buccaneers and the Patriots in the Super Bowl? Ain't likely to happen. But Would that not be? Oh, that would be just
one for the
everybody.
ages.
It would. You talk about the storyline. So anyway.
Regarding Rodgers, sometimes you feel like a nut and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, well, I think that hair, man, does me in. You know what I mean?
The samurai look. Go ahead, Ty.
I'll start off with the victors of the Green Bay and Rams game. The most bizarre takeaway I'll take is like, should Aaron Rodgers break his toe more often? Because
right.
He played solid through the first part of the year, and since he's broken his foot, even in a loss against Minnesota was the first game where he really looked like MVP Rodgers of last year, and he follows it up with this game against a Rams team that I don't know what they're doing on defense. They still have some stars on defense, but it feels like definitely teams know how to pick on them. But again, the biggest credit to Green Bay is Rodgers playing at a high level, Devontae Adams having a good game, Randall Cobb, the guy who quasi-GM Aaron Rodgers wanted to bring back. Good call by quasi-GM. He had 95 yards and a touchdown. Marquise Valdes-Scantling is starting to come around. A.J. Dillon, who a lot of people said they shouldn't have drafted 2 years ago, is really starting to come on. And he also just gives them now that Aaron Jones isn't talented, but he gives them another part of their identity. He's like this rugged hammer who can just kind of physically just pound their opponent into submission that Aaron Jones doesn't have. And Stafford, the reports came out that his back is acting up, and I'm not even just going to put it all on that, but like clearly and they came off a bye too. It feels like they should have come up with a different template or adjust it, and it feels like it's the same song as before they went on bye. Like they haven't figured out to maybe lean on the running game more, or it feels like maybe they're getting Odell up to speed to some degree. Like all the wide receivers play well, but again, like the defense feels like outside of Jalen Ramsey, it feels like some of the secondary guys are big enough weaknesses that they just stay away from Ramsey and they can just pick around him.
So can we rule out the Rams as the great experiment of collecting all these players over and didn't work? Or where do you guys stand on where the Rams are now?
Oh, I think they're still in the conversation for sure. I would say that their offense misses Robert Woods a lot because he did a lot of the things of like he would block downfield. He's unselfish. OBJ's not going to block. I don't think OBJ can block. And another thing is the whole game, OBJ was holding his back. Every time you saw him on sideline or walking off the field, he was holding his back. So I think he's injured again. I think on defense for those guys, for the Rams, yeah, you got Von Miller, but it takes time for people to understand, okay, this guy does this when you've got to coordinate all of that. I mean, if people think it's just jarhead nonsense, but
schemes.
These are complex setups. So,
and I guess just looking at the rest of their schedule, it feels like at very least they should get at least 3 wins, if not 4, that I feel confident in. They play Jacksonville next. That should be a win. At Arizona, that's probably a loss. Playing Seattle, they should win that game. At Minnesota, that's a toss-up, but I think they can win that game. At Baltimore, with the way Baltimore's looking on offense, I think they should win that game. And then
what's happened to Baltimore, man? By the way, just side note here. They couldn't do anything against Cleveland.
Right. People have caught up to them. We just say they've got to kind of figure it out.
I don't know.
Cat's out of the bag. We know what plays you got.
It was a good defensive battle. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not a fan of Baker Mayfield, but I will give him one thing. The man's out there with a busted foot, tore up shoulder. You got to respect that. I mean, he was trying and he had some throws. But offensively, Baltimore has to get back to running the ball. They got to if they can. I mean, they're